The NBA players have actually received multiple pages outlining the rules and regulations of their living situations. So players who test positive will be moved into isolation housing. Everyone on campus will be required to wear proximity alarms. So if they're in the proximity of someone else for too long, the alarm will go off and they'll have to move. Players will not be allowed to enter each other's hotel rooms. Referees and front row coaches won't have to wear masks, but the back row coaches will. And one of the more interesting things is players can actually watch opposition teams at the arenas. So I know you got kind of a list on more of the lavish lifestyle that they'll be living in Orlando. So I'll toss it over to you for that.
The Grand Destino, the Grand Floridian, and the Yacht Club, Jack. I mean, I just hope my boy Dame isn't actually staying on a yacht because he might get seasick, Jack. And I can't have him parked in the whatever, one of the Florida harbors when he's got to play a big game against the Grizzlies to face elimination the next day. But it's interesting, Jack. You went over a lot of the precautions, obviously the 10 to 14 days self-quarantine, reduction in compensation for games that are missed, and some of that really awful enhanced testing, which is deep nasal swabs, which just sounds absolutely awful. Not a fan of that, Jack, at all. But I mean, this is lavish. I mean, it's almost like a best basketball camp that you could go to. Amenities include a players only lounge, NBA 2K and TVs, pools, barbers, manicurist, pedicurist, 24-hour concierge, daily entertainment, movie screenings, DJ sets, ping pong, lawn games. I just hope that you don't have another Andrew Bynum situation where he's trying to play some bocce or bowling and he ends up ending his career forever. Shout out to Andrew Bynum, man. You were a real one for a couple seasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jack, what probably surprises me most is that players will openly be able to attend other games. I don't know if they're doing that from suites. I don't know if they're keeping in small groups when they're doing that, but interesting that they'll be able to. Obviously, a lot of these guys will probably have some free time. And I definitely think whether it's supporting their buddy or just trying to get a great scouting report on how Harden's step back looks like after, 65 days of no basketball, it'll be interesting. So yeah, kind of those, it's the top echelon staying in the Grand Destino there, that kind of mid-level at the Grand Floridian, and then the bottom of the barrel trying to make the playoffs in that Yacht Club. So, continue to be interesting, Jack. But I think one of the big storylines here is, we haven't seen a lot of controversy around the NHL. It's supposed to start on time, but the NBA and one of its superstars, Kyrie Irving, has kind of been stirring up some controversy. And, given the Black Lives Matter movement and, just a large amount of meetings and social demonstrations across the country, some players are leaning towards the side of, they want to address this and they want to move forward with this very critical, crucial topic prior to going back to their day jobs and playing basketball. So, we've seen it on both sides. We've seen Kendrick Perkins going at Kyrie saying, stop being a and just play the game, even though that you're injured, or let your teammates play the game.
Well, he didn't want to finish the season anyways, is the big thing, right? Him and Durant didn't want to finish the season to begin with. And yes, this movement is important, but it's so divided in the league right now, right? You've seen some of the younger guys come out and saying like, well, it's easier for him to say, but I'm still on my entry level contract. Like, I need these games for the money. And then you got like the older guys, the veterans that, trying to get a chip on their way out.
Trying to just get a paycheck too. Yeah. It's quite controversial. I saw there was a debate online because Ed Davis came out and essentially said that he's like, hey, I don't have the luxury of Dwight Howard or Kyrie Irving making $30 million a year. I'm making a vet's minimum, 1.6, and I need to go out there and I need to play to get my paycheck. And there's a huge amount of controversy around, well, he's a millionaire. He's making over $1 million a year. If he lived like a regular person, like you and I, Jack, he would be perfectly fine and he wouldn't need to play basketball. But there's the other argument where he's accustomed to making at least $1 million a year. So as a result, he lives a more lavish lifestyle. I mean, obviously, a guy like LeBron James, who has a $30 million contract and another $50 million in endorsements, he's not living the life of someone who is potentially making $1 million. So they're accustomed to that life. And that is, they have bills to pay. They got to pay the mortgage for their parents' house, and they got to pay for these cars and things like that. So it's causing a lot of controversy online. And there's a lot of people taking both sides. And apparently, according to Kyrie, there's a strong a contingent amount of players that are not voicing their opinions outwardly yet publicly, but that have hesitations to play and potentially don't want to play in the bubble. And the NBA has come out and they have said that players are not going to be forced to play. If they don't want to play in Orlando, they don't have to. We know, Jack, a lot of these players are itching to get back. And if the NBA makes it as safe as possible and continues with these, kind of stringent regulations, that a lot of these guys will be back and that we will see NBA basketball this year.
Definitely, yeah. And some interesting things about the bubble that we didn't talk about was that families won't be able to be there for the first round. So after the first round is played, then their families can join them, but they're only allowed 3 family members.
Right.
That's interesting. Right. One of the ones we glossed over, which I found outrageous, was that there is to be a huge surplus of cards at Orlando. And after each game,
of which?
Cards, like playing cards. And after each game of cards, the decks will have to be disposed of.
I hope those are getting recycled, man. I hope those aren't going into a landfill.
Who knows? But
that's awful.
And then we didn't talk about the anonymous tip line to report violations inside of the bubble.
That's
which
hilarious. The memes on the internet just got me cracking, man.
I get the NBA is like kind of like a fraternity, and everyone likes each other. But like when you get to the playoffs, there's a lot of hatred, and you're putting these players, like in the same enclosed space. So when these games go off, like I'm excited to see, is there going to be some beef like off the court? How is this going to play out? That is just super interesting to me for sure.
Why do I have a hunch that Patrick Beverley is going to be calling that line about 4 times a day? I got no trust in that man. Yeah. He's a great defender on the court, but off the court, man, I don't know. I don't know if this guy's going to be snitching.
And the other thing too was like they mentioned they're going to have access to 2K, but didn't mention like if it was like any other video games, like it's strictly 2K. They can't play anything else.
You're playing basketball for your living. You can only play basketball off the court. There's no FIFA. Yeah. There's no Shell. There's no Borderlands. There's no Warzone. Come on, man. Come on.
Yeah.
It's wild. We'll see what happens.